shine. Come on, up you get. Transit. On the move.
Hello, Dr. Caldwell.
Hello, Melanie.
Morning, class.
I loved how it sort of freshened up the genre. It has a sort of real... There's something quite deep and tender about this film. Of course, there's all of the kind of gore and the flesh eating and all of that, but there's something really humane about it, and I just felt like it was another look at the genre. It also felt very relevant for the times, especially relevant now after Brexit and all of that lot. And also I wanted to work with exciting new filmmakers, and I think Camille, Gatin and Carey and Colm McCarthy are these new voices, and I just wanted to get involved and work with them.
The process started with Mike's short story, and the thing that was most exciting about that in terms of creating a movie was the central character that he'd conceived of in Melanie, and the tensions of an innocent monster in the context of a zombie film. It was really exciting.
I first read a short story that he'd written, which is essentially the first 5 minutes of the film, and I absolutely fell in love with the character of Melanie. And I'd never seen a character like that who doesn't realise she's a monster, but also is incredibly emotional and absolutely loves Gemma Arterton's character, and I thought that was a really interesting premise.
I think possibly the answer is Melanie. Because there have been obviously hundreds, if not thousands, of zombie narratives. I think what we had going for us was a lead character that was sort of that hadn't been seen before. It's a zombie story told from a zombie point of view. The protagonist is a monster, but she has no idea that she's a monster, and she is also an innocent. She's a child. She's got the enthusiasm and the emotional openness of childhood. So she's very, very easy to engage with. And then once you engage with her, once you start to sympathize with her, you realize what else she is. It was actually incredibly liberating, because I was working basically the whole of my waking life. I was in that world. I was in Melanie's world. And the two versions in some ways stayed very, very faithful to each other, very similar, and in other ways they diverged. But it was as though each version made the decisions that I was making for the other version easier. It illuminated what the key issues were, what the key storytelling challenges would be, and how we should get around them.
It was awesome. You know, Tip was great. The Midnight Madness screening for the film, the audience were just really incredibly receptive to the movie. We had some very direct emotional contact from some of the people there, and the film resonated for some of them on a kind of emotional way that was beautiful.
It's really interesting to come back from such a different vibe. You know, in Midnight Madness, it's the really hardcore fans, and interestingly, we'd been at Fright Fest 2 weeks earlier, and the reactions were pretty much the same. Especially women find it really interesting to see a horror with so many women in it, and absolutely fell in love with the character of Melanie. And what's interesting is actually a lot of the reactions, people have had very personal reactions and have decided to interpret the story in connection with something really personal to them, which is always really lovely.
Is it good or bad to try to save humanity? I think that's good. You know, I mean, I think you work with what you know, right? And she has to believe that what she is called to do in order to create a cure for humanity, she has to suppress certain sides of her nature and to believe that what she's experimenting on is not a human being. And what's the alternative? I mean, I kept asking myself that, and also that character would say, what's the alternative? We'll all perish. So I liked it because it was she exists in the gray area, not black and white.
I love the script. I'm not usually a sort of zombie aficionado. I'm not my type of bag usually, but I read the script and it moved me. I found it very touching, a real insight into desperate times. It felt very, very relevant for now. I love that it centered around a young girl, which gave it a completely new angle. And I wanted to work with Colm. I met him and I just thought that he had a really different take. I could see he was a visionary, had great taste, great with actors. So everything spoke to me.
I've known Colm for a long time, for 7 or 8 years, and we've always dug the same stuff. We wanted to make an Aleister Crowley film, and we've always wanted to find really smart British genre films. And so when this story came along, it was a no-brainer, really.
Only having 5.5 hours of performance time a day kind of makes you really have to focus in on how you're going to construct a movie within the confines of a shooting day. And it was challenging, but I think it was also focused our thinking in terms of how to shoot and approach scenes.
It was a very early decision. As you know, in the novel there are 5 point of view characters. It's all of the adults as well as Melanie. You get to see inside their heads. But it's very, very easy to do that in a novel, to switch point of view without losing momentum, without losing the impetus of the story. And I think it's more difficult in a film. We needed the audience to completely empathize with Melanie's perspective, and we felt that every cut away from that perspective would be risking everybody taking a step back and becoming disengaged from her.
We sent it out, we had amazing responses from agents, and our casting director was like, you can really aim high, and we did. And yeah, Glenn fell in love reading the first 10 pages of the script and then got on Skype with Colm, and 3 weeks later she was in Birmingham with us.
It was wonderful. It was like working with a very bright, open, unpretentious, unaffected little girl. I mean, I thought she was remarkable. I'm sure you've heard. I mean, she's never been out of Nottingham. So she's an amazing human being. She's a wonderful girl. Wonderful.
I'm working on a film called The Escape, which I am in and have written and am producing, and we start shooting in 2 weeks. It's about a woman who is having difficulty with married life and leaves her husband and children.
We're actually working on Mike Carey's next book, Fellside, which is a ghost story set in a women's prison.
So the novel that I had out in April of this year, Fellside, which is a ghost story set in a women's prison. I'm developing that with Poison Chef Productions, the same production company that did Go With All the Gifts. I'm working on some TV screenplays, on another movie. I've still got a foothold in comics. I've just completed the prequel to Girl With All the Gifts, which is called The Boy on the Bridge. Completely different cast of characters, the same world 10 years before. I would love to try. We'd have to change it because the timeline of the film is slightly different, subtly different from the timeline of the novel. But I think it could be done.
I'm working on Krypton at the moment, which is David Goyer's penned, and it's set on the Superman's home planet, and it's about the ancestors and the genesis of the L clan. We start filming on the 10th of October, and it's looking like it's going to be really big, but I can't say a lot more than that.
People, Melanie. You can save everybody. Oh my God.
What did you do?